Real estate is the big leagues for sales. Higher ticket prices, higher commissions, higher everything.
Welcome back to the show. My name is Remington Ramsey, and today my guest is Leigh Marcus of the Chicago market. Leigh, how you doing?
Living the dream, Remington, selling homes.
You sell all over the Chicagoland market, which is significant. You know, I think a lot of people in bigger cities like that choose a niche or maybe get different offices, but you're all over the place. What's the longest amount of time it's taken you to drive to the farthest part of your territory?
Yeah, probably like an hour and a half each way.
Okay, that's not as bad as I thought. That's not bad. What's your favorite part about Chicagoland? Because you've actually lived in like Colorado and other parts of the country. What's your favorite part of Chicago?
Oh man, anywhere near the lake.
Yeah. Does it get cold?
Yeah, but it's beautiful, man. It's a beach. It's awesome.
Well, what we're going to talk about today that I think is fascinating about Leigh is before real estate, a lot of people find themselves in different vocations, different industries. The industry that Leigh found himself in is not one that you would normally make the transition to real estate, and that was tech sales, right? So you're sitting there at a cubicle with a headset on for 2 years straight. And how did that get into, hey, I no longer want to be at a cubicle. I want to be out selling homes.
Yeah. So my wife, Lindsay, was a realtor first, and she did really well her first year. This was like 2005, 2006, and was doing great. And I was in sales. And I realized that real estate is the big leagues for sales, higher ticket prices, higher commissions, higher everything. And so, instead of being a desk jockey for the next 30 years, so I got my license. I still was not full time. I just got my license, and I sat one open house with her, picked up $1 million buyer, and I quit my job that week.
That reminds me of Wolf of Wall Street when he says, "Tell me how much money you make. If you show me that paycheck, I will quit my job right now." That was you.
And I did. I slid my badge across my desk to my boss, and I'm like, going into real estate.
I'm out. And now, flash forward, you're on pace or do about 150 mil, right? Annually,
yeah.
Which one thing we talked about in the pre-show, and I think shows in your results, is that a lot of agents talk about doing things, right? You said a lot of agents will tell you what they're doing, but the results don't actually show that. And you've been able to scale pretty tremendously by getting up to 150. What do you think about your previous role in tech sales did to prepare you for putting up such monster numbers?
So a lot of it is just the basics. And the more you steer away from the basics, the lower your production gets, right? So we are in the people, image, and communication business. So the more communication you're doing with clients, with potential clients, that's what it's about, right? So prospecting on the phone, making calls 3 to 4 hours a day at least. That's just been my formula.
And we talked about prospecting because I think sometimes people hear the word prospecting, and even top agents, like there's certain buzzwords in real estate where different words mean different things to different people. So when you're in year one, prospecting does not look like it does now for you, because when you're calling through your database, you have a database of people who bought homes. But who did you call in the first 2 years when you didn't have a database of people who bought homes from you?
Yeah. So I had a really good coach, which I still do, Mike Ferry. And I asked Mike about this early on, and he literally said, no matter what level of business you're doing, spend 50% of your time in right now business and 50% of your time in future business. And so I never forgot that. So I was always calling my database, people I know and people I don't know as well, just as much.
This is a little off topic, but I'm kind of hungry. Did you ever set up appointments in Portillo's and close deals in Portillo's?
No comment.
Portillo's is great, man. I just read the book by Dick Portillo. It's very inspiring to me. I actually, it's fascinating. If you haven't read, I see a bunch of books in the background there. You're a big reader. What are some of your favorite books?
So Atomic Habits is amazing. Anything by Tony Robbins as well. Unleash the Giant Within.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tony, he writes big books too. Like even his audiobooks are like 20 hours.
Yes. Yes. So be prepared. Yeah.
Well, one thing you told me again in the pre-show that I want you to kind of expand on is that you have a leg up, I feel like, on the competition because you are used to sitting at a desk and grinding out calls. And that's probably a lot of realtors who don't take that next step and get to that next level, the thing that keeps them from seeing that success. So why does it come easier for you because you're just used to it? Or what did you learn while you were grinding out those calls?
Yeah, I mean, it takes practice, right? I don't know a single person that's like, yeah, I love talking on the phone. I'm comfortable with it. And it had, and just started, right? It takes time and practice. But being committed to the craft and noticing that you can get better very quickly if you focus on improving your skill set and you talk to 30, 40 people a day and 6,000 to 7,000 people a year, you're going to get better no matter what.
Yeah. Well, as you're growing your team, do you feel like retaining talent is getting tougher and tougher in this market, or have you found
Yeah.
out? Yeah.
But it's also being clear about what type of talent you want, right? What's important to you, right? Like not every team is the right team for each agent. And so the team definitely reflects the perspective and business of the team leader. So, there's certain team leaders that they never prospected. So they can't create a prospecting based team because they've never done it, or they try, and there's other teams that are not marketers. Well, they can't create a marketing based team because they've never done it. So I think it's just a reflection of what you do as the team leader and what you've done to create business.
What do you think is different about your team that maybe in the past, if you haven't retained talent, maybe on your own choice where they weren't a good fit for the team, what made them not a good fit, or what makes a good fit for your team?
Being willing to do the boring stuff that pays the most
Over and over.
over and over. You're going to be standing there 3 to 4 hours a day, depending, might be 6 to 8 hours a day, and talking to people and calling people. And some people some people you don't know. And you'll be working on your skills every single day, getting better, practicing, role playing, talking to people, getting out there, reviewing property. And that is not very sexy to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Like that is totally okay. It's about being true to what do you want to do? How do you want, I mean, what are your goals?
This is a little funny and off topic, but kind of related. When you're phoning, do you have like a go-to like position or way you do it? Like I'm looking at my desk and I realize I've got all these like squishy, stress balls. And it's because I spend so much time on the phone or the computer and like I fidget so much. I know some people get up and walk around. Like, do you have a go-to position?
Yeah, of course. Right. So like motion creates emotion. So I'm moving a lot, right? I'm using my
Yeah.
body, I'm standing up, using intonation, using inflections in my voice. And yeah, so just not being static, not sitting down.
I considered getting a treadmill at one point I had that. I had a bouncy, like one of those big aerobic balls, and I liked that a lot. And people would always laugh as they walk past my office, but I never I never got the treadmill. Wonder what that would be like.
I did have a trampoline though. When
A
I first,
trampoline for your desk, like next to your
yeah,
desk?
like how they have circular ones that are,
Yeah.
and for a while, I had that to generate energy and emotion on the phone so that when I'm talking, like, because only a little bit of what you say comes through. And so you really have to generate way more energy and enthusiasm than people think you do.
Sure. Well, going back to the topic of retaining talent and growing, I mean, one of the things that I think top producers in any field struggle with is if you're going to be a top producer and you're going to recruit someone who wants to be like you. Now they're on your team and they're learning from you. They aspire most or some aspire to be like you. So you're not going to keep them long term because eventually they want to be the Leigh Marcus. So how do you keep your top people excited to remain on your team? Or do you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, if you're delivering value and continually improving what you do and what you offer, then ideally you're growing to the point where nobody has to leave you. You're growing and they're doing better with you than without you. Right.
Hmm.
So, but if we get to the point where we're not a fit, we don't offer the value, or people want to go a separate direction, can't be mad at that.
What are those value offerings? What's like a checklist that if I'm a team leader that I can put down on paper and say, hey, do I have this? Yes. Do I have this? No.
Well, so especially now, like in 2021 and 2022, I mean, anyone can sell a home, right? Even a turkey can fly in a hurricane. So like you were just trying to catch what was falling. But in 2023 and from now on, with low, it's much, much harder. This is real sales now, right? And so sellers are more discerning. So what is your track record? That's great that, my friend referred you, but I'm interviewing 3 agents, right? So number one is track record, right? So at this point, we've sold over 1.2, $1.3 billion in sales and 2,200 homes and, have market share. And so number one is just a track record that people can use to gain traction within their database and get appointments and get sales. Number two is training, right? Like at this point, I didn't, generate these sales by sitting on my laurels, right? It's like it was active, proactive. And so being able to teach that to people that want to learn that.
You have a quote, you can do anything as long as you do it 10 times everyone else. And if you look at this market, especially, I'll give you a little inside scoop, as producers, what we do. I mean, I've literally told our guys, there's still mortgage lenders are our number one field in terms of partners for the magazine.
Yeah.
And it's just not as easy anymore. Like lenders for the longest time were fat and happy, just like the top realtors. And now there's a bit of a thinning of the herd, but that does not mean that lenders still do not need to be connected to realtors. And so for our guys, it's like, hey, listen, you might not be able to call 5 and get that sale. It might be 10 now, but that doesn't mean you just stop working or the economy is falling through. It means you have to work harder or more if you want to see the same, if not more success. So your quote here speaks to that. Do you find that as the market slows down, are you taking from the market share from someone else who's not willing to make those calls, or is there just less market for everybody?
Yeah, great question. Well, I think the market doesn't determine your success. The market determines what you have to do in order to be successful. And in 2021 and 2022, you didn't have to do much. And so now it determines that you actually have to go to work and work 10 times harder. And so, yeah, if the market's not going to carry you now.
Leigh, we just found the banner for this entire podcast. That was gold. Oh. I love it. So a little bit about your personal, and then we'll jump back into success. Your kids are 12, 10, and 8. You're right ahead of me. Boys or girls?
3 girls.
Yeah, same. So I've got 3 girls. My brother-in-law and sister have 3 girls, and they're pregnant with twin girls. So that's bananas. You guys love camping. You have any good camping stories for us?
When when my wife Lindsay and I were first dating, we were going to go on a camping trip, probably our 3rd or 4th date. And it was cold, too cold to go camping. And so I canceled the trip and I booked a plane ticket to Costa Rica that day.
Best camping trip ever.
Best camping trip ever. We were on the beach by the next morning.
Costa Rica is great. The rainforest, that was the coolest zip lining experience I ever had, is zip lining through the rainforest with, all these animals around you. It's just gorgeous. Costa Rica is a trip if you ever get a chance to go. So getting back, merging the two conversations between spending time with family and working 10 times harder. If you were used to working 40 hours a week to get the type of success that you were getting, and then this down economy, what we're saying is we have to work harder to get the same, if not better, results. Does that dip into family time, or are you working smarter, and what does that look like?
Yeah. So number one is defining what work is. So like a lot of people think that while they're showing a home, they're working, but we really define working as 80% of your time in lead generation activities. And so if you're running around with a buyer that's not going to buy, or wasting time, you could feel like you're working and you could feel like you're putting in 40, 60 hours a week, but we don't get paid to do that. We get paid for results and closings. And so that's number one, is being clear about what actually working means and not settling for things that aren't going to be income producing.
Well, So my notes say that this market is not hard. It's normal at best. It's real estate. So how long have you been in the industry? Let's define that.
Got licensed 2005 and full-time
Okay.
2007.
Okay. So, closing in on 20.
Yeah.
You've seen the worst recession ever, which was 2008. I sublease from a bank. So we're constantly talking about the Fed and everything that's going on with that. Do you feel like at some point it actually is something to be concerned about with the mortgage rates? Like at what point do we need to actually say, you know what, this is actually pretty bad and something needs to happen, otherwise the housing economy is going to be in real trouble?
So yeah, those are things that I can't control, right? So I think the definition of insanity is also focusing on things you can't control, and that's the most stressful thing you can possibly do. And so all I really focus on is what I can control. I can't control rates. I can't control the Fed, but what I can control is my daily activities. And so all the rates continue to go up, and all that means is it just defines the type of activities that we have to do and the level of work we have to put in to get the results we want. So no, I don't think there comes a point until they make selling real estate illegal. Like,
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. I don't know about illegal, but there definitely is a lawsuit going on right now that is affecting the buyer market. We didn't talk about this, so I'm not sure if this is something that you feel passionate about or not. But Leigh Brown was just on, who's somewhat of a spokesperson for NAR, talking about what's going on in Missouri for the class action lawsuit. And we're seeing major brokerages settle, which some people think it's just to get them off their back so they can keep going. But some people actually interpret that as, okay, buyer's agents might be going away, or that commission might be going away. There might be restructuring of teams. What do you predict, or what is your reaction to all this? And as you have people on your team coming to you, like, what's your response to them?
that the harder it is, the better it is for good agents.
Mm.
Everyone should be praying for it to get harder. That is the best thing that could possibly happen, because the harder it gets, the more people leave the industry, the more that people don't just use their sister or brother to sell their home. Like, when I started, I went full-time April 17th, 2007. And the next year was 2008, if everybody remembers what 2008 was like. And this is not a hard market. This is a great market. Right now is a great market. You can list a home and it'll sell. That's amazing, right? 2008, you could list a home and there was like a 10% chance of it selling. And the next month it was worth 2 to 3% less than what it was when you took it, and less. And then you had people that were writing checks to get out of their home to sell. They're writing a $200,000 check to get out of their home, and they were happy. They were thankful for what you did. So like, that was the biggest blessing, 2008, 2009, because for anyone getting into the industry or trying to make headway, all of the people that were just resting on their laurels have to scramble and either get out of the business or they just freeze. And so if you're proactive and you're doing things every single day that you can control, making contacts, reaching out, you're going to do amazing. And the harder it is, the better.
What's fascinating about the different ebbs and flows of real estate, and you mentioned this before, that you feel like the older agent or the agent that has a little bit more tenure is maybe annoyed or frustrated with the younger agent coming in. Why is that?
So a lot of the agents that's been in business 25, 30 years, they've seen, I mean, what's the average? I think it's something like 87% of realtors are out of the business within 18 months. Mm-hmm. So all of these realtors come in and are gusto, and they're going to make it, and they're going to do something great, and they're gone.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the older agents have no patience this is what I've seen for newer agents to help and share, because number one, a lot of agents aren't going to do what the advice they're giving is. So
so it's falling on deaf ears.
And you can only do that a few times before you realize it's futile.
That's an interesting perspective because agents, some of the agents that are viewed as curmudgeon, probably didn't get there because of deals going south. It's possible they got there because they've helped and given of themselves so many times, and it just feeling like it is just, again, falling on deaf ears or going nowhere, where it just got exhausting and almost like they've been stabbed in the back so many times because the realtor just leaves the industry after getting all this. That's an interesting perspective, and one that I hope people keep in the back of their heads when they're dealing with an agent who's been around a while.
And so the single best thing you can do is actually do what they say to do.
Yeah.
Not just pay it lip service.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So not only that, but like you mentioned, not doing what they say, but ultimately leaving the industry, I think also hurts that. It's interesting how different industries respond to that. So like I sold Cutco back in a former life.
Yeah.
So that's how I know
sales.
Andy Burton, your publisher. That's where we first met. And in Cutco, we loved kids who would come in and sell to mom and dad and the aunts and uncles, because they would use the one knife that they bought, and then the next year, who've been there for 10 years, would go in and sell the whole set. So for our industry, we actually loved the turnover. The difference between that and real estate is if you get a new realtor and they come in and they sell their own house and maybe mom and dad's house or one other house, and probably don't do a great job because they're new. There's something that they didn't know about. You're hurting an experience with someone else who is like on the other side of that deal. And then they leave the industry. That doesn't help anyone. And it also helps the optics, or it hurts the optics of real estate, because now all the vendors that were involved with that, I mean, I can't tell you how many contractors we call and the response is, oh, we hate working with realtors. All they want is free quotes, and they expect to be done now, which is why it's so important for our listeners, people like you who take care of those vendors, who take care of the real estate deals, to go in and protect those optics of the industry. That's why I think this class action lawsuit and anything upcoming that is attacking the realtor is more important for realtors like you to band together regardless of brand. So what would you say to that? In your market, are you taking advantage of other community-based things for other top producers?
Yeah, there's people that are really doing what is supposed to be done and conducting, and conducting business at a high level, and that are going to be around for a while. And so we all work together, right? We all see each other on the other ends of the deal. And so it doesn't have to be contentious.
This has all been fascinating, Leigh, and we're going to wrap up with one subject that I didn't prepare you for, so hopefully you're ready.
All right.
Real estate is interesting in the fact that it's a business that many people don't think can be sold. But I do believe some realtors have tapped into the ability to retire and actually sell off and give their book of business to someone else. Is that something that you're in your 18, close to 20 years, are you thinking about your succession plan and what that looks like?
So, I mean, I think we're really blessed to be able to do what we do, that if I were to stop doing this, good realtors are extremely useful, right? Like, we help people, we shepherd them through a sale, we like make things easier, we make it less stressful. I don't know, and that's what's great about what we do, is we don't have to stop at any one point, right? Now, I'm sure there are people that are like, hey, I'm done. I put in my time and I don't want to work any longer. Fine. I get that. But it's extremely rewarding, and it's extremely when you're in the flow and you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, it's a blessing to be able to do what we do. Now, if people, so there's a couple of exit strategies, right? Number one is you just make enough money and invest the money wisely that you don't have to work anymore.
Yeah.
Right. But then you might find you don't want to stop working, and you work for fun, right? You still do what you do, not because you have to, but because you want to. So, and then the other part is, investing in people and helping train people that you could, start to take a step back.
Lastly, I think a lot of times we feel like once you hit a certain level of success that, you're just immune to negative thoughts and recessions and anything that could affect your business. So I'm going to pretend like everyone listening to this could use a word of hope. As someone who's a top producer that's figured it out in every single market, what would you encourage the listener to do if they might find themselves in a place of, I'm not really sure how to react to the market. I'm not really sure why my business is down, but I know that I can control certain things. What's my first step to get back into the positive?
So I was there. I mean, I was probably 3 months away from having to go get a job. And this is
I said this was PG-13, Leigh. Watch it.
So a job, right? And like, but it's just a question of how bad do you want it? Like, this is what's amazing is we really don't have competition. The only competition you have is yourself, right? The average realtor sells like 2 or 3 homes. So you're not really in an industry where you're competing against the masses. You're just competing against yourself. There's so much business out there. And so if you really, and just being true to yourself of how badly do you really want it? You have to be willing to be an entrepreneur, right? Like and you are a business owner, make no mistake, we are business owners. And so that's not for everybody. The reason that so many people end up leaving the business is like, it's not for everyone. But unfortunately, the NAR and everyone makes their money off of people's dues. So they're not going to tell anybody not to be a realtor. So right. Know when to quit, and when I got into the business, I didn't have a backup option. I quit my job. Lindsay, my wife, quit her, was in this. We had no plan B. So I worked straight through the dip and what was to come. And so just know that like you're closer than you think. And this is not complicated business. It's not easy, but it's not complicated. And anyone that tries to make it complicated is trying to sell you something.
That's great. This has been Leigh Marcus on the Real Producers Podcast. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for being on the show, Leigh.
Absolutely. Thanks.
We'll see you next time.